Welcome, everybody, to the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast. This is Nicole Greer, and they call me the Vibrant Coach. And today I have another amazing, vibrant guest who shines out there in the world, and his name is Josh Kwasny. Let me tell you all about him. Josh is a collaborative team member, insightful teacher, and an engaging speaker. With a passion for helping organizations thrive, he has been working with individuals and teams in both the for-profit and nonprofit sectors for more than 20 years, bringing order to chaos. Hello, do you have chaos? You need Josh. And he wants to help you cultivate, don't miss this, a healthy culture, aka a vibrant culture. He draws from a diverse vocational background, including teaching, construction, sales, coaching, and management. As the vice president of operations at a manufacturing company, Josh was introduced to the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS, and he was struck by how EOS uses simple, proven tools to bring organizational clarity and to get everyone on the same page. He was so impacted by the EOS that he became a full-time EOS implementer. Josh now focuses his efforts on teaching, facilitating, and coaching leadership teams to get what they want from their businesses. And what do you want? Success, money, peace, freedom? All of these things are possible. So he's a native of the Chicagoland area. And for those of you who have listened to some of my things, you know I love my New Yorks and my Chicagos and my LAs and my Miamis and all my big places. So go to Chicago, people. Josh now resides in North Carolina, where he enjoys time with his family and community, and he likes building things. He is passionate about baseball and loves a well-told story. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Thanks, Nicole. So good to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. Yeah, so I'm collecting definitions of leadership. So what's your definition of leadership?
Well, I think I don't know if it's simple, but maybe an image that I heard one time, and I don't know who would get credit for this, but I would say it this way: if no one is following you are not a leader. You're just someone taking a walk. And I think
Oh my God, I love it.
that's the definition. Are people following? And so leaders have followers, and I think that's the essential part is there are there people following you, and that's what makes leaders ultimately.
Yeah, yeah, and I tell you, if we have a choice, we'll not follow, right? I mean, if
Absolutely.
you're not doing a great job with your leadership. So I'm curious, these leaders who have followers, what skill sets do you think that they have that make them successful, and what might they be missing if nobody's following?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think oftentimes leadership and management are intertwined, and actually they couldn't be any more different. In the work that I do on a day-to-day basis with EOF, we teach our managers and leaders that they're very distinct. And so, leadership is more of a on the business type of thing, whereas management is an in the business or in the organization type of thing. Leadership's about clear direction, whereas management is about setting expectations. Leadership is all about going forward and creating an opening behind you, whereas management is about communicating what it takes to fill that opening. Leadership's like thinking and, management is doing. So I think the skills of a leader are very, very different than the skills of a manager, but they tend to, I don't know if you've seen this as you've worked with so many businesses and individuals, that I think they put the two together and they couldn't be more different. Would you agree with that?
I would. I think that, a lot, well, I agree. And yes, and I'm trying to do improv these days. Totally trying to do improv. So I think that a lot of people have to put both hats on,
Absolutely. Yeah.
especially the smaller your business.
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's all intertwined. But I think to understand when you are leading and when you are managing is a very helpful thing. So we actually teach practices for a leader and practices for a manager. So I could share a couple of those.
Yeah, do it.
Really there's five leadership practices and then five for manager. I'll focus on leaders. So one I mentioned already is leaders give clear direction, right? So they know where they're going. They know what path they're on, and it's clear. So vision is always this big thing we talk about vision, but leaders have a clear vision, and so they know where they're going, and they give that direction. Like, here we go. This is the hill, or this is the beach we're heading to, or whatever. I think secondly, they provide tools to people. Good leaders give them the tools to do their work, right? And, resources, training, technology, whatever they need. I think third, they actually let go of the vine. This is something we love to talk about. Great leaders, and this is hard. they might have started something. And like you said, like when you're, especially a small business, small organization, it's everything you, and they have a very hard time. And we can bring us into this. We have a very hard time with letting go of the vine, with actually delegating. But great leaders are great delegators because they continue to move forward and they're creating this great wake behind those people that fill in that gap. I think fourth, we talk about in EOS, and I love this, is that great leaders act with a greater good in mind, right? They have a thing bigger than themselves. I think that's what you're talking about is like the people, we get to choose who we follow, hopefully. And we don't
Yeah.
choose the ego one who's all about themselves. We choose someone who, if he is thinking about something big. People follow purpose. They don't follow people. They follow a purpose that they're following, right? And then I think the last thing is, and this is when we teach actually a tool, is great leaders will from time to time take what we call a clarity break. They will take space away from the day to day, the management side, and they will think about the organization. They will think about the business. They will think about their team and just take an empty piece of paper and a pen and go think on the business, think on the organization. And I think those are 5 practices that if you cultivate, I think you could be a great leader. And I really believe um, people think, and it's maybe because there's so much on YouTube and everywhere else, that there's a profile to a leader. Like, you're kind of born a leader. Like Nicole, you were just born a great leader. Like, no,
Well, that is true, everybody.
well,
No, I'm just
I mean, maybe everybody else struggled then, but born a great leader is a myth. You might have personality traits that lend yourself to leadership, but we say if you have 2 things, if you actually love people, like you care about people and you want to be great, like growing and learning, you can be a great leader. And I think that's such an encouraging thing. That's why these are practices that I'll teach and lead people through. They're not just abilities you go find. And if you don't pass the test, you got to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So let's just go back to number one because we could just do a whole hour on number one.
It's true.
So leaders have a vision and they have a direction, and I think that you got to share it too. That's the biggest part, right? So I think a lot of leaders like they got it in their head, and oftentimes one of the things they forget is tell us what we're doing. What are we doing? What is it that we're doing?
That's right. Oh my goodness, you're so onto it because one of the things that we see over and over again is actually great leaders and particularly visionary type leaders who are really 30,000 feet all the time, that are really thinking high level. They think they're communicating the vision all the time when they're not. In fact, I have a funny story. A client of mine some years ago, we teach 6 things that you need to be strong in, and one of them is in vision. And we have a way of helping them to assess how strong they are in each of them. And this leader, particularly the visionary, was convinced that the strongest they would be of the 6 things was vision. And as they handed it to the rest of the company, guess what the weakest one was? Vision. Because again, sharing it, you are right on, sharing it and being creative and thinking about it, multiple times. We believe 7 times before you actually heard it the first time. And so if you're just giving once a year motivational speech, that's 7 years before they heard it. If you're doing it quarterly, it's a year and a half before they heard it. So you're spot on. We've got to communicate it over and over and over again because everybody wants to share it.
So, just for those who are on the planet who haven't heard of EOS yet, so there's some folks out there are like, "What's that?" There's a book called Traction, and it's by Gino Wickman. And so, will you talk a little bit about EOS because I think one of the best things in that book, and I give that book away like crazy and talk about it with all my clients. And Josh and I are going to coordinate efforts here. But you know, you need like some documentation along the way of like where you're going. And one of the things I love so much is the VTO in Traction, which is the Vision Traction Organizer. So will you talk a little bit about the book and Gino and the tools that are in this book because I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, this book that Gino gave to the world, and now as implementers, about 800 of us around the world, you should be able to find one in your area to help. But this book was really just based on a discovery that every entrepreneurial leader, they wrestle with hundreds of things all the time, just simultaneously. It's that chaos, right? And And the good news that as Gino worked with leadership teams for years as he developed EOS, he found it really just fixed things that you need to be strong in. You can, if you just, and that's good news, right? I can handle 6 things, 600 things is overwhelming anxiety producing. So those things real quickly, vision, right? Vision, like we just said, it's being 100% on the same page with where you're going and how you're going to get there. Vision is key. You got to be strong there. You got to be strong with people, right? The people component is getting the right people for your organization. There's no such thing as this right people that you can just go out and find. You have to find them that fit your particular culture and want to go on that vision journey with you. So right people. So people component, we got to strengthen them. Third is data. We've got to run the business on facts, figures, right? Not subjective ego and emotion. That's what tend to run, especially the entrepreneurs in the world. It got us there, but probably won't continue on the journey. Then you need to be really, really great at solving issues. So that's the fourth component. We talk about the issue solving, where we've got to actually have a list of those issues, and then we got to learn how to solve them. And then you have the process component, right? Maybe not the most the sexiest, but process. Oh my goodness! If you can systemize, and I love this, I find
So you
that
have to
more and
rinse
more.
and repeat.
That's right. And what's funny is like I keep coming up with quotes and then I forget to attribute people to them. So I'm sorry if I'm doing this, but you can
That's
Google
okay.
it.
Everybody Google what he's about to say.
Yeah, that's right. No, I actually have this one. So the founder of the Four Seasons said that systemize the predictable so that you can humanize the exceptional. And that is so powerful. Like put the things on repeat so that you can, like when you're building this vibrant culture that you're talking about, that you help people think, though you've got to have the exceptional that comes in and you're gonna have to deal with. But if everything's always exception, it's hurting cat. But if you can put some things on repeat, then you actually have the bandwidth to focus. And that's what the process component is all about. And then last, definitely not least, this is where the title comes from, traction, is the track component. This is discipline and accountability so you actually execute. Gino will say it this way: vision without traction is hallucination. So my world is to help people live in the real world, not to live in a fantasy world. And the sad part is, and I'm sure you see this, many, many great visions die the death of poor execution, no traction.
100%.
And we want to see these great visions come to fruition. I mean, there's opportunity when these things happen. And so clearly you can say I get a little passionate about that. It might be my Midwestern speed of talking, but it's also just passion over those 6 things. So EOS is all about really helping people strengthen those. And the one that you said, the VTO, and I love that you remember that, right? Some of my clients take the
Oh,
time to
I
remember those words.
touch these things all the
I
time.
love it, but it's vision and traction in one page. So often we do these 3 to 5 year strategic initiatives and plans, and they're binders, and they're all cool and look impressive, but we don't follow them. And so the VTO is 8 questions that when you put those together as a leadership team and roll that out to your team and they get on board, it's clear where we're going, the vision side. The traction side is our plan to get there. And in 2 pieces of paper, you can save the paper and print on both sides. But there you have your vision, and that's the VTO, and that's
And it's cost saving. Don't miss that.
yeah, absolutely, that's right. So that's it. I mean, that's the VTO and a quick overview of that. And really, EOS, if you boil it down, is simple tools. We want to teach people to, when they have one of these issues to work on and strengthen, what tool do you need to get better and better at that? That's what we want.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you're curious and you're already Googling, you can go to eosworldwide.com/Josh Kwasny. And let me spell that crazy Kwasny for you. Kwasney.
Nope, just a Y, no E.
Oh, did I say E? Strike that from the
Everybody,
record.
everybody does, Nicole.
That's knee, so there's E, but
Right.
it's Josh Kwasny. There, I got it. Yeah.
You got it.
And here's the thing I also love about all of the things that EOS provides is like you can download all the tools, you can read the book, you can try to do it yourself, or you can get Josh's help. So, you can
Absolutely.
do it either way. Now, the thing that I think is like where the rubber meets the road on this whole EOS thing is this deal about accountability. So, Josh, everywhere I go, whispering in corners, I'm coaching new people one-on-one. Executives are talking to me and they're like, nobody's accountable. And I'm like, well, you just kind of got to decide that what we're going to do is accountability. And so how does EOS, or how do you as a EOS implementer, how do you hold people accountable? Because I think people need a good example. Maybe they've never worked for anybody that really towed the line on accountability. What are your thoughts about that?
Great question. And I think so. One of the things that EOS implementers do is we work specifically with the leadership team because we believe as the leadership team goes, so goes the rest of the organization, right? And so if we're going to have an accountable organization, it starts with the leaders. And so my role with that leadership team is to teach them and hold them accountable to using the tools first on themselves and the organization, and then roll that thing out. And so accountability starts with the leaders opening it up and being accountable first to themselves and then to everyone. And so we have something called an accountability chart. So I know you'll download the tool and you're like, this looks like an org chart. Well, it's very different than an org chart. I say org charts are about titles and egos, right? That's org charts. Who's seems to be the most important? Well, accountability charts are about functions and roles. It's about how the team plays, all the functions moving well together for the greater good of the organization. And so starting with that, getting all of that clearly articulated with crystal clarity around roles and what it means to be successful, that opens up the idea of accountability. People talk about wanting accountability, but you'll find out once you start exposing what you're holding them accountable for, if they really want accountability. There's a story I heard from another implementer that really, and hopefully this doesn't offend because I don't mean to put people in these categories, but I'll share the story. He talked about accountability is like turning on a light. And when you're at home and you turn on the light and you have a puppy, what does a puppy want to do? A puppy wants to play, right? You turn on the light. No matter what time of day or night it is, a puppy's ready to play when the light goes on. And accountability is like that. Like, bring it. I love it. Tell me what the rules are. I love this. Let's play. Let's play. Well, cockroaches don't respond the same way to the light. And again, that's sort of, I don't mean pit them like that against each other, but I kind of do because it's just these people that you necessarily don't want to go where you want to go. And if you want an accountable organization, when you turn on that light, no amount of coercion is going to help them enjoy the light. They want the darkness. They want to be out of the light. And that image is helpful for me because it's like, who doesn't want the puppy, right? Who doesn't want the ones that respond? But oftentimes, what do? Put all our energy on the ones as leaders, trying to turn cockroaches into puppy, trying to change someone. They don't want to go. And we don't have magic wand. So how are we going to do that? Well, let's focus on making these puppies into these wonderful, wonderful employees and partners and people within the organization. So I don't know if that image helps, but that's the image of accountability for me.
No,
Turn
I
on the
think
light.
everybody's going to remember. Yeah. So cockroaches into cocker spaniels.
Oh, there you go. That's even better. That's right. Good.
Yeah.
That's a
No,
book. That's a book coming somewhere. That's a book title.
Okay. All right. Well, it's my title.
Yeah, you have it. You can have it. I'll write a check. Happy to help.
Here's the thing. I just, a lot of times, back to, offending people. So I'll go there too, and then we'll both be in trouble, or people will think we're funny. Either
Thank
way.
you for sharing that with me. That's nice. I'm reading by myself.
Yes, right. I won't leave you hanging. I never do. So a lot of times I'll go give an HR talk about recruiting and hiring the right people. And so, I tell people, make sure you know what you're looking for. You're looking for an eagle, not a turkey. So I talk about eagles and turkeys,
There you
but
go.
it's the same thing.
Equal opportunity offend. That's good. Yeah.
That's right. But the truth of the matter is, eagles love to be held accountable. In fact, they're the kind of people that are like, Josh, you asked me to get this done. I got it done early. Here's a triplicate, and I made a 3D model for you. And Josh is like, wow. Yeah, and you're like, Nicole, you're an eagle. And I'm like, I know. And so then I'm like, what else do you need me to do? And these are the folks that, like, if you get them inside of a company where, EOS is going on, that company is going to grow, first of all. I'm going to ask you that question one second. Hold that thought. But then if it grows, you're going to need some eagles who are ready to take on more accountability. And then if we did have an official org chart, I bet that they would go up the official org chart as well, right? They would get promoted because they're doing eagle work. They're doing cocker spaniel work. This is really important.
Yeah. And really, I think it's not even that they're going up, being promoted, climbing the ladder. Because again, I think that's the org chart mindset. like the higher I am, the more significant I am. I think the slight adjustment I'd make is they'd find the seat that's great for them. And they would, because
Right.
it's on the, because it's on the accountability chart, so clear, these are the things you need to be to fit in that seat. Now they have something to shoot at. They know how to be trained. They know, what they need to do to show up. And you're going to have eagles or turkeys, or you might call them superstars versus rock stars. These are people who love what they do and they're good. Some people don't want to advance. They're more rock stars. Like, let me be the best plumber in the world and I'm going to knock it out of the park every day. And then you have the superstars that are like, give me more, give me more, give me more. Both of
Yeah.
them are fantastic in building a culture, but the culture is the one where it's clear, it's accountable. We know what it means. One of the worst things we can do is expect something and not tell them, right? Back to the communicating vision. Same thing with accountability. You've got to communicate that. This is what it means to be part of our company as a culture, and this is what it means to do well in your job when you're sitting in your seat. And those are critical and a loving thing to do. I think it's loving is to give clarity to people, right? Give clarity to people, and then they can choose or choose not. Oftentimes we don't give, we want those, go ahead, what do you want to do? But they don't really know what they could do. And so that's what a clear accountability chart and accountability ultimately will do. Let those
Yeah.
eagles soar, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. And, and then, the little box on the accountability chart, it just gets longer and longer and longer and longer, or they take on more.
Take on more. Yeah.
Maybe they start delegating things off to other people who are younger Eagles or Eagles newer to the company or something like that. But the other thing I think is so important that I think everybody listening has probably in their career at some point had this thing, especially if you're an Eagle, especially if you're a superstar, especially if you're a Cocker Spaniel. Is everybody keeping up? Especially if you're a superstar.
Wait,
It's
too many
that
terms. Too many.
uh, if you're one of these hardworking people, we'll just call them, you get what's called job description creep.
Mm,
Like when you got hired, you got a job description, but it's kind of like maybe Josh and I have the same job title. But then, Josh is much more user friendly than me and he
mm,
works a little harder and he has a smile on his face and I don't or whatever. He's that superstar. My leader is going to be like, "Hey, Josh, will you do this for me?" And Josh's like, "Oh, of course.
mhm.
Have it done today." And then before you know it, Josh has a job description, which is, I think these things started in the 50s. Um, and it's like way outdated. It's like 10 years old. I don't do any of this stuff anymore. So I think the accountability chart also fixes that problem.
It absolutely does. In fact, there's a book that recently came out from EOS Worldwide. It's just called People. Dare to Build an Intentional Culture is the subtitle, which I love, right? And I would just put it vibrantly intentional culture, right? That's ultimately it.
Yeah.
And they have this great illustration in the book called we call it GWC flow. So what we say is for you to be, once you have that accountability chart, you've got to get it. That's the G. You've got to be wired for this job, the specific job. You got to want that job, not just want a job, but you got to want that one. And then you have to have the learned ability, the capacity, that's the C, to do it. But there's a chart in the book that's been very helpful that I've been helping my teams think about where you need to be in that flow. And what you're describing is there's times when more is required of you in the job, but you don't have the skill and you're stressed, right? So you need to get the skill training to get back in that flow, GWC. And there are times when you have excess skill and not enough challenge in the job and you get bored.
Right. Bored to death. Yeah.
That's it. And so the job of a great leader, a great manager is to constantly help the employee and their partners in business to make sure they're in flow. So there needs to be enough challenge and enough ability. And, we just need to help people find that. And there's no right flow. There's just a flow for you for what's required of the job. But yeah, otherwise what you just do is all of a sudden you fake it till you make it, right? Like some people just like fake it till you make it. And meanwhile, stress is just going up, going up, going up. You don't have the ability, but you have enough ability to fake it for a while, but pretty soon. And so what we need to do is we
Right.
need to
And they
constantly
call
change
that
our
burnout.
burnout. That's where you end up. And so the job of a great leader is to pay attention. So they're not like, great, great, a high capacity person, give them more and burn them out. And at the same time going, I don't want to overwhelm them or bored. It is a dynamic that's all about leadership and management. And that's a helpful image for me to say, we're going to keep them in the flow. And that means it's a dynamic and it's always a conversation. I think leaders are aware of what's going on around them.
Yeah, yeah, and so that's making me think about a program that I do training on called Employee Performance Management.
Hmm.
You've got to sit down with your people and talk to them about their performance, and so a lot of times people think, "Oh, am I in trouble?" And, really though, if you have people that get it, want it, and have the capacity, or you're gonna sit down to help them get the capacity to do it, they love that conversation.
That's right.
Coming up, I think all the jobs I ever had, Josh, I had, like, one company that, like, got that,
Yeah.
but the rest of the time I was like I used to run restaurants and apartment communities, and, like, they'd be like, "Here's the key to the restaurant. Good luck. Here's the key to the apartment community. Good luck." And I'd be like, and since I'm a eagle and a cocker spaniel and a rock star, I did okay. But I think a lot of people, we fail them because we're not checking in on them. I love
Mhm.
the GWC concept for sure. So that's another tool that's downloadable. You can go again to Josh's website, eosworldwide.com/Josh hyphen Kwasny, Kwasny. Got it right that time.
Nice.
And I get that tool from over there. Yeah, so I think that is a fantastic. So this clear direction. So I only got to vision, and we went all down all those paths, which was amazing. But I think we hit on right people. But you want cocker spaniel superstars and rock stars. Uh, but what do you mean by right people? We've heard the whole get the right people on the bus
Mhm.
thing before. What do you mean by right people? I have an inkling, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so of course you got to give credit where credit's due. That's Jim Collins, right? Right people on the bus, right? And so what we like to teach and train people to do is think about right people are people who fit your culture, and right seats are people who can do the job. And you need both of them. You can't settle. And so the right person, and we just use core values for that, right? So we articulate core values and then hold folks to those core values so they know they're a right person. Instead of me saying, Nicole, it's just not working out right. I just don't know if it's a good fit. What if I can tell you, well, getting it done is one of our core values, and you just don't seem to be wired that way, and it's not one of yours. So why don't we find you a place where that is the place you can thrive? Because when you describing your core values, you're not describing good people or bad people. You're just describing your people. And so if you can be super clear that this is what it means to be a right person, here's our 3 to 7 core values. And people might be rolling their eyes right now because when they hear core values, they work for a company that was on the wall on a banner and it was all done by a great marketing company and it looks cool, but didn't mean anything. It was like,
Right.
we're honest. And then everybody's lying. It's like, no, you're not. You're lying. Like that's the core value. You're liars. But we have it on the wall. But if
No,
you
they're
can,
fibbing.
yeah, fitting. But if you can articulate honestly who you are, not what you want to be when you grow up, but who you really are as a culture, then you can communicate to people, is this you? Does this resonate with you? And so when we do that, that makes a right person. And then someone in the right seat executes the job. And we simply can't settle. So you can have right people who can't get their job done. Well, we got to coach them in or help them find a different place. And the same way, maybe worse. At least I've experienced this to be worse. People who are in the right seat, they're nailing the scorecard, they're hitting their numbers, but they're killing your
Right,
culture.
technician. Right.
Yeah, and they're killing your culture. And so we have to do both. So we say those are both important, but they're two different things. And I will see teams having a right seat conversation when it's a right person issue. Well, let's move them into somewhere else. It's like, no matter where they go, they do their thing. And it's like that, you're
Right.
not going to train them to be a different value. You're going to find that value. You're going to articulate that value. So
Right, right.
if you're having the wrong discussion and then you're firing somebody and saying, and they're confused, talk about unloving again. Hey, we're letting you go. You're not hitting your numbers. Like, yes, I am. No, the real issue is the cultural fit, and you need to be able to articulate that. So, yeah, that's how we think about core value, culture fit.
Yeah, yeah, and so, I think you guys call it the people analyzer. Do I have my story right?
You have it right. I always joke
Okay.
that that is like the least warm and fuzzy tool title ever. Hey, we wanna put you through the people analyzer, but it is that. It's a way in
Oh,
in in sort of black and white to see on a piece of paper whether you're at, below, or above the bar. And it's not, I tell my teams, we're teaching you tools. Tools can be used as weapons, but they're tools. It's not a weapon to try to find somebody to get off the island. It is a tool by which to communicate, coach up, or ultimately maybe have to help them find something else. But yep, the people analyzer is the tool.
So I'm going to give you an example, everybody, if I may. May I do that, Josh?
Yeah,
Talk
please.
about an example. So one of the companies that I work with, one of their core values is if you see something, say something. So it's a little
Mm,
bit like the airport. You're in the airport and they're like, if you see anything suspicious, please don't hesitate to
right.
report.
Yeah.
Whatever. Um, so so the reason being is because this is a manufacturing facility and they're like, even if you don't work in shipping, but you see something and you're like, "Whoa, wait a minute, that should not be happening. You need to say something." So, long story short, there was a lady that worked at the front desk at this manufacturing facility and she was the most lovely person. Like you walked in, she's always greeting you, big smile on her face. She's like the mom,
Hmm.
of the company,
Yes,
she's awesome.
absolutely.
And apparently, I heard this from HR that they said that she had gone and went on a little errand with a note. Somebody had called and it was urgent, so she's running through the facility and she saw somebody on a forklift with flip-flops on. And she had been through safety training, as everybody should go through safety training,
Hmm.
whether you drive the forklift or not. You should understand what's going around in your surroundings. And so she, waved down the forklift driver and said, "Oh, excuse me, you have on the wrong shoes." Oh, they were like, "What is she doing telling me about my shoes?" And she's like, "I saw something, and so I'm saying something. I'm worried about your safety. I wish you would find some different shoes to put on." And so, like, this story went through the whole place that, like, she really is our mom. She's telling
Hmm.
us what shoes to wear. But I love that story because, the core values, they either mean something or they don't,
That's right.
and so and so on the people analyzer, she'd get a plus
Yes,
because
absolutely.
she's stepping out courageously going, "Where are your tennis shoes?" Or whatever.
That's right. And
Those steel-toed boots or whatever they are.
yeah, well, and I think you illustrate the other point you were making before about communicating to people the vision and who we are. It's the same thing. We got to constantly keep before us who we are. And you tell those stories as a way, okay, see something, say something. That's our core value. It's not like, and then go do it. Let me give you an example of how that worked. Here
Right.
she is, and you know it. And it's just a way to encourage someone because people want to be right people. And we tend to
They
reward and
do.
recognize people based on their productivity, which is great, but we
Yes.
don't reward and recognize people on being a right person. And so telling that story is laud and honor for her because she truly is one of us. In fact, she's leading the charge.
Yeah, yeah. And the great story is like this young man went up to HR and said, "I need shoes." The person told me
Perfect.
and that's how they found out. But I mean, I just think that's just a wonderful, wonderful
Mhm.
example, of like people, and I love that it's about the hitting the numbers, and we're all about in the EOS and in the interaction, we're all about data points, like you said, and so there's like a company scorecard, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most maddening things, maybe it's just me, but it's playing a game. I don't know the rules, don't know when it's over, don't know when I win. Right. And so a scorecard is all about giving clarity again, clarity to people to know what it looked like on a weekly basis, whether or not they're winning the week. And so oftentimes I think when people punch the clock alone, they're saying, "Okay, I went and did work, but was it a good day?" Well, I don't know, I feel good. But if you can say, "Here's the measurable, here's the number that you keep on track, that your job, and if you keep that on track, the whole company is affected by that." Oh, you could, I mean, talk about employee engagement. Everybody wants employee engagement. Well, give a number. Help them understand what it looks like to win. And when you have a scorecard on teams that everybody's playing and understand what it means to do that, you not only have clarity for what you need to do, you will see what's not working and you can improve it. So yeah, a scorecard has so many facets of help, but again, putting those things in facts and figures instead of ego emotion. I mean, I want to trust my gut, but I don't know if it's bad Chinese food, right? Like sometimes it just might be
Right.
the wrong decision because my gut is telling me this. Well, if I have some data, that's going to help me understand what's going on.
Right, 100%. Yeah, so, the 6 things that EOS looks at: vision, people, and then data, we just talked about that, and then okay, so issues. Okay,
You
solving
don't have any,
issues.
Nicole. Don't worry.
Oh, I've got a list. My therapist no, I don't have a therapist. I need a therapist.
We all do. We all do. Yes, we all do.
Counselor, coach, preacher friend, something. So, solving issues. So here's the thing. I will go work with a company, and as you know, you and I were talked about what we do. I do so much training and executive coaching, but like again, this like it's Groundhog Day. The same issue keeps coming back around and coming back around, and it's like, this is not a good strategy in business. Although I believe in all three of these things, so you can wish, you can hope, and you can pray, but you probably have to like meet the day and meet the issue head on. So,
That's right.
so, how do you solve issues in EOS? Like, do you guys got some magic you could share, like a tip or something?
Yeah, I mean, everybody get your pens ready. This is super,
Here we
super
go.
high. It's unbelievable. We call it IDS, and it stands for identify, discuss, and solve. You're like, wow, really? You're like, thanks, Josh. Well, how does that work? Well, it's a very simple tool, and here's what we've learned. So as many teams get together, and you just described it, they just discuss everything. It just discuss, discuss, discuss. Okay, we ran out of time. Let's table that, bring it back. Or they try some
Yes.
sort of solve and come back. What we've learned is when you start to solve an issue, the first and most important thing is that you identify what's really going on. So you've got to dig down. Typically, what's on your issues list, right? And we can go back to our therapist again. Like there's a symptom that's going on. I'm not feeling well about this, or I'm thinking about this.
Right.
What does a good therapist do? Just like a great team would do, continue to ask great questions to get down to the bottom. What's really going on? I often use this illustration with my client. A fight in the warehouse, the symptom, something's going on underneath there. Why did they fight? Did someone call someone the name? Someone a name. Was there something they didn't like? What was going on? And as you dig down and identify, another great quote, don't know where to attribute, but an issue well defined is half solved. So I think many people struggle to solve their issues because they're talking about the symptoms. So we go round and around with speculative ideas, and we're still not really sure what we're
Right.
talking about.
Opinions.
Yeah. And so let's get down to what the real issue is. Let's spend the conversation there, and then let's go around the table. So the discuss part of IDS, and this is, I think, really critical too, is it's one time around the table. We don't get louder and say it again and again because someone didn't agree with us. That's called politicking, right? We take the politics out. Lord knows we need to take politics out. So we don't politic around the table. We share what we're thinking as a leadership team. We fight well for the greater good. And then once it becomes redundant, we make a decision. We take some action items. And what's great about that is then that issue is solved. It really is, because when you come back and that to do, you check in on that to do the next week in your meetings, because we believe in weekly accountability when you have to dos. That if it didn't fix it, guess what comes back? Not the same issue, but a much more specific issue that we've uncovered. And so you actually get down to the root, even if it takes a couple to-dos to get there. And I think that's the brilliance. It's just simple. Identify, discuss, solve, but don't go through them rotely. Dig down, discuss it, and then put some action to it. Don't do paralysis of analysis. Get through an issue, solve it, and move on. And I just see teams, sometimes they're going to solve one issue in a meeting because it's just a big, hairy issue that you got to pull apart. It's like an onion, all the layers. But then sometimes there are 12, 13, 14, 15 issues because they're really getting to it, taking ownership of it, having great, healthy conflict within a meeting where they're actually sharing their ideas, not just their opinions, but their ideas, and listening to each other, and then they can solve. And a team that knows how to solve their issue, watch out. They can do a whole lot. And it's a beautiful thing when people do it. And here's what's really important. I want to say this because I think this often gets missed. We're talking about leaders and leadership. That is not just the job of the leadership. The job of the leadership team is to teach all their people how to do that as close to the issue as possible. So everybody learns how to IDS. I said, wouldn't it be a wonderful day? I'm saying to these leaders, executives, I'm saying, wouldn't it be a wonderful day if something broke and it got fixed and you never knew about it? And of course, some people who haven't let go of the vine, like we talked about earlier, go, no, I want to know everything. And true leaders will say, oh my goodness, would that be a beautiful day when I can just trust that things are getting solved and they're not all bubbling up to the team. So IDS is a simple but really powerful tool.
Yeah, and what you're talking about there about having the confidence that your people know how to solve problems is what Dan Sullivan, who is another genius, he's
Yes.
called strategic coach, but he calls that a self-managing company, right?
Yes.
It's like
That's what
when
we
I have
want.
empowered people. Yeah, and so I can really take a vacation. I can really turn off my phone and know that whoever's hanging around is going to make it happen. So that's fantastic. All right. So the next one on here, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, process. Okay. So I'll just say this about process is that if you don't have it written down, nobody knows what to do if you're not there.
Simple. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Process so oftentimes, I mean, it is the first tool we teach is just a simple way of documenting it. You're spot on. The first thing we got to do is document it. And I think the documenting piece is we've got to first simplify it. So we take a high level approach. We believe document. This is when it comes to, especially when we're talking about process component, we start with the core business processes like HR, sales, marketing, operations, the main things that sort of run almost your franchising document. That if you simplify it, you put the 20% to get you 80% of the way there, the major steps, right? Simplified. And then we believe that that presents something that you can actually follow because you do it 100%, you end up with a big old 800-page employee manual that no one's going to follow because they're never going to open it. So what we want to
Right.
do is not only write it down, but write it down with the basic, simple, what absolutely needs to happen in order to produce the results we want. And then we don't put it on a shelf and just take it out when we need it. What we do is we pay attention to it because as things change, people change, markets change, we got to make sure that process is still producing a result. So that's why it's a key component. It's constantly things that you need to pay attention to because ultimately you don't want to just write them down and feel great that you got your binder or your OneDrive, but you want to
What
be
giant
following it.
7,000-page document, right?
Yeah, but process people love it. Like, look at all our cool processes. But the second question would be, are they being followed by everyone? And do the people know where to find that process? Do the people know how to do it? And so when you simplify a document and then actually train and manage people around that, wow, now you have systems in place by which you can then go to those humanization of the exceptional things that come out.
Yeah, and going back to, issues just for a moment, solving issues, I would say a lot of the time, I don't have a percent, a lot of the time when you find an issue, well, he does it that way and I do it that way, and I thought we were doing it that way.
That's all right. Okay, wait a second.
This
Is there
just
even a
one
way?
time. Right,
I
right.
I actually know of an implementer. One of my implementer friends was telling me about another one. So like secondhand, but it's true. Um, he put around the table during a session with clients. We
Yeah.
work full days with session. Around the table, he puts a sign in one of the seats and it's processed. And so when they get to issue solving, just like what you said, he'll say, well, what do you think what's process perspective on that? What does the process say? And turns and looks at the chair. And it's like, sometimes it's like, we don't have a process. Other times it's like, you're right. What is the process? Let's open it back up. But it's a key part of the business. And oftentimes you're right. We either don't have it, it doesn't work, or there's 14 of them going on and we don't have any
That's the
consistency.
problem.
Yeah.
That's right, and I like my process better than your process, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'll tell you a fun one about that. So, I have a client over in Kentucky, and they own, listen to this, 42 convenience stores. This thing never
Wow.
goes to bed, never has a holiday off. It is the
Mm.
biggest thing ever, this company. But it's in the hills of Kentucky, and so they sell fried chicken. And so the problem is that if you went to this particular location, you got May's fried chicken. If you went to that, you got Justina's fried chicken. If you went over here, you got Bill's fried chicken. But if I travel that same highway, I want the chicken I like.
Mm.
And so talk about process. So it was this big hullabaloo about chicken.
Yeah.
We put everybody who makes chicken in a room, and we said, "Write down your process, your recipe," right?
Mm. Yeah.
And then we said, "Okay, this is how we're gonna make chicken." And you
That's
know what
awesome.
happened when we took this recipe, and that recipe, put it all together? Get the best dang recipe. It was crazy because this one was just the right amount of spices, and this one was just the right amount of crunchiness, and this one was just the right amount of moisture. I mean, anyway,
That's
process,
exactly
people.
right. Process. And that, I mean, you're talking about food now. Food is serious business, Nicole. Like,
I know, and I'm
absolutely,
hungry.
right? I know. Let's stop talking about this. But yes, that's a perfect illustration of the power of process. You get a consistent thing that people can count on and everybody knows how to participate. Man, talk
Yeah.
about again getting to a great culture. What if that's part of the keys to having a great culture?
Yeah, and the thing is too, is that, as they're doing that, this was about how the chicken tasted, but at the end of the day, food cost, prep
Mm,
times, storage. You gotta be safe with the chicken too. Safety. It was a
yes.
whole thing.
All of it.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, process. I love the thing about the chair. I love it. I'm gonna steal that shamelessly. Everybody put that in your pocket. Set that at the table. Process. Okay, and then finally, last thing, with just a few minutes left on the clock. If you did all this vision, people, data, solving issues, process, you would get this thing called traction. You would execute. You would get traction.
Yeah, and actually, I would even say traction isn't just the result. It actually is one of the key components to work on because you can have all those and miss. And so the traction component is all about what are the tools to continue. They're all related, as you can already see. It's all related into a system. That's why we call it the Entrepreneurial Operating System, the way of all those parts that harmonize the business. But traction is its own component because there's a couple tools that you use to actually get traction. One that is critical is that you live in a 90-day world. We talk about this, living in a 90-day world. For some reason, we've been made as people, humans, struggle to go much beyond 90 days and focusing on one thing. But we don't have the capability of getting much past that. I joke that I got 73, 74 days before my ropes start coming undone, when I'm poking. And so if we can, part of discipline and accountability is realizing the limitation of human energy and doing it 90 days at a time. This is where the quarter comes from, right? Quarter, it's not just a
Right.
financial thing, but we 90-day blocks at a time. And so teaching people the tool of using rocks, Stephen Covey, right? That's a Stephen Covey thing, that we would have rocks, business priorities, and then our individual priorities within our department and as a member of the leadership team or just as a member of the team is that we would then focus on living this 90-day world, that we would have our heads down working every 90 days or so. We'd take a break as a team and we'd look back and see, what did we do these last 90 days? What did we learn? Check our vision, make sure that's on the same page. We remember it doesn't take long, a couple of degrees and you're going to a different destination. So reset that vision and then go back with new rock for the next 90 days. So that actually the tool traction will come by actually living within your means, which is living in that 90-day world. And then the other tool we teach in there is the idea of having a good meeting. Like in that, we call it the meeting pulse, right? And we use a tool called the level 10 meeting. But the meeting pulse is, I say, it's just like your heart. You want it to beat the right amount of times. Too fast, not so good. Too slow, also not so good. We need the right meeting pulse to connect our leaders to drive the discipline and accountability. So you're right. It is a result of those things, but it also is its own discipline that we need to focus on getting traction, right? Traction actually is a key component of the business. And we use tools to get.
Well, I know everybody is like, I'm gonna go get this book. I'm gonna call Josh. So get ready for your phone to start ringing. I love that. So, is there one little final nugget you would leave our listeners with that you're like, okay, so all of that, but here's the thing. What
The thing,
what would you
just
leave with them?
one thing. So
Yeah.
I think lately, one of the things that I've been thinking about, there's a lot of the thing, and I think this is why I'm so appreciative of the work you do of just this, even just this podcast of people being able to come and interact and learn. One of the things that I think, maybe circling all the way back to leadership, is that curiosity is a trait that I think is lost. Leaders are all about, I've got to give direction. I got to be the person saying this thing. I got to keep up the image and I've got to lead and, work all these hours. But I just think one of the things that I've been working on in my own life and helping my teams work on is curiosity, asking more questions than making statements. I think great leaders, great companies are curious. And I really think great humans are curious, right? Where they, it's been so fun to be able to talk about, fill in your curiosity of what's going on. And I think people will benefit from that. Well, if you can flip that, right, and just be curious about what's going on, you can lead better because you can understand your surroundings. You can understand the surrounding you're in, even just from your perspective by being curious. So, curiosity. I mean, if there's one thing that I want to be, curiosity doesn't kill the cat. Curiosity makes you be a great, great leader and ultimately a great human. So thanks for your curiosity today. You're just illustrating it the entire time. So I'm really grateful for
Yeah,
that.
it's my pleasure. All right, everybody. That's an hour with Josh, which isn't enough time. But, anyways, maybe he'll come back and play with us some more. But here's how you can find Josh. He's at eosworldwide.com/Josh hyphen, let me spell it right, Kwasny, Kwasny. Check him out. Go to his little website. He's over on the LinkedIn. He's everywhere. So, Josh, thank you so much for being on the Build a Vibrant Culture podcast.
Absolutely a pleasure. Thanks, Nicole. It was fun to be here.
You're welcome. All right, everybody, go down, leave us a comment, give us a thumbs up, share this with a friend. We appreciate you so much.